Welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Morning Pitt. It's the way to start your day with Pitt talk and Pitt news and Pitt thoughts and just general Pitt conversation for a little while. Every morning you get your morning shave, you get your morning shower, and you get your morning Pitt right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. The most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, and recruiting. You find it all at Panther-Lair.com, and of course message boards where you can interact with hundreds and thousands of other Pitt fans. And the message boards, they have been a-buzzing in the last few days. If you thought the Pitt football team played its best game of the season on Saturday night, you were right. They did. And then you saw something of a repeat on Monday night, last night, when the Pitt basketball team played its best game of the season. One of the best games I can remember seeing this team play in quite some time. Certainly, I mean, we don't need to dig too far back into the recent or not so recent past, but it was certainly their best game of the season. And that wasn't just sort of opponent based. They played better last night in beating Northwestern than they played against Alabama State or Fairleigh Dickinson or William & Mary or any of the other teams that they beat. Even, the Tennessee Martin game, it looked like a lot of fun. They were having a great time out there. They played great, but it wasn't like this game last night. 87-58 against a Northwestern team that had been, if not great, was still, I think, 5-1 heading into last night's game, had not given up more than 63 points in a game. Their only loss was to Auburn, the top 15 team. And Pitt just absolutely ran circles around them and did it for the better part of 40 minutes, which was a big thing we've talked about so far this season, particularly over the last three games, is this inability to play a full 40 minutes. And that's what Pitt did. They took a 37-28 lead into halftime. They used an 11-4 run starting around the 7-minute mark or so. It was a 16-16 game when the clock ticked down to 7 minutes in the first half. Pitt went on an 11-4 run to take a 10-point lead and ended up leading, like I say, by 9 at halftime. And that was really because Northwestern hit a 3 as the clock ran out, the time elapsed on the first half. Or else it would have been a 12-point lead, which is, what it seemed like it was headed for. And then they just absolutely dominated in the second half. I mean, not even, it wasn't even close, and there was no doubt about who was the better team last night. Pitt scored 50 points in the second half alone, and I mean, you've seen the stats by now, but they're still unbelievably eye-popping. Pitt shot 48% from the floor, 63.6% from three. They out-rebounded Northwestern 41-30, which is a huge number and hugely important number given what we've seen out of this team, particularly in recent games. They out-rebounded them in the first half. They managed to hold Northwestern largely in check on the offensive glass outside of a brief stretch conveniently right after I tweeted about how Pitt was holding Northwestern in check on the offensive glass. And probably the best thing they did last night. I mean, the shooting was outstanding. The shooting was not perfect. They missed 28 shots that they took. So, but they also attempted 54 shots. So it was pretty good. Better than 50% in the second half. Shot 67% from three in the second half. But the best thing, and I think, everyone would probably agree to this. They were talking about it a lot on the broadcast. We were tweeting about it. I think a lot of people were tweeting about it. It was the passing. It was the way the ball moved. Pitt finished with 22 assists on 26 made baskets. I mean, that is a phenomenal number. You make 26 baskets in a game, you're in pretty good shape. You've had a pretty good game. You get 22 assists on those 26 baskets. That is an outstanding number. Pitt made, and here's where it really came into play. Here's where it really mattered, and here's what you could really see. I mean, they were doing a good job, getting the ball out and getting the ball to guys in the lane and finishing and all that stuff. But if you look at it, 26 made field goals. 14 of those made field goals last night were 3-point shots, which is a pretty remarkable number to begin with. That 14 3-point shots and 12 2-point shots. They shot better from outside. They were 14 of 22, 64%. Inside the arc, they were 12 of, let me do the quick math here, 12 of 32. So they actually shot better from 3 than they did from inside the arc. And the reason they shot so well from outside is all the passing. Pitt made 14 3-pointers. There was an assist recorded on 13 of those 14 3-pointers. I mean, think about that. 13 out of 14 3-pointers had an assist. And you saw it as the game happened. You saw really good passing, but not just really good passing, but the willingness to make an extra pass. I can't count the number of times. Well, it's probably about 6 because that's the number of assists that Nelly Cummings had on made 3-pointers. And he seemed to do this every time that the ball came to him and you thought, okay, this is where the shot's coming. But he made an extra pass. He said, and you would sit back and say, wait, what? Why would you do that? But before you could complete your thought, the guy he passed to drained the shot. Nelly Cummings had 6 assists on 3-pointers last night. Jamarius Burton and Nike Sabandi had 3 assists each on 3-pointers. Blake Hinson had 1 assist on a 3-pointer. Hinson made 4 of 5 from outside the arc. Cummings made 3 of 4. Greg Elliott made 3 of 4. A huge shooting night for him. Finished with 18 points, 5 of 8 from the floor, 3 of 4 from 3. Made all 5 free throws. Jamarius Burton had 14 points. Nike Sabandi scored 11. He continues to be hot. He was a real spark in the first half. He made 2 threes in the first half, and that was huge for Pitt. In addition to Mr. Electricity, Mr. Spark, Blake Hinson, who had 2 threes in the first half and a couple more in the second half. But Nike Sabandi continues to be a spark for this team. And came up with 11 points last night. Hinson led all scorers with 22. Cummings had 17. It was just, I posted the box score on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com, and I said, look, this is a fun box score to look at. It's not just a bunch of numbers on a page, because the numbers are all pretty entertaining to consider. I mean, there's really no bad stat here. Pitt had 10 turnovers, which is not a bad number to have, particularly when you have 22 assists. Like I say, they out-rebounded Northwestern. I mean, nobody had more than 3 fouls. I mean, it was just, it was outstanding start to finish. And one of the most remarkable things, and again, this is not going to be a surprise to you, partially because you watched the game, partially because you heard the broadcast talk about it nonstop, but even if you had the sound off, you would have noticed this. It was the relative absence of John Hughley. Hughley really didn't do anything in this game. Obviously started. He played 14 minutes, attempted 1 shot, didn't make it, grabbed 2 defensive rebounds, was called for 3 fouls, turned the ball over twice. And in the second half, when Pitt scored 50 points and really just put away Northwestern, Hughley played 3 minutes, didn't attempt a shot, took 2 fouls in 3 minutes, and his day was over. And Jeff Capel showed a willingness to say, well, this guy's not doing it. This guy's not getting it done. But we have a lot of guys out there who can get it done, so we're going to go with them. And so Jorge Diaz-Graham played, he only played 5 minutes in the second half. Federico played 11. All told in the game, Jorge played 10. Federico played 16. They had Blake Hinson playing kind of like at the 5 for a little bit. I mean, he was the biggest guy on the court for at least a few minutes here and there. But Jeff Capel, he basically said John wasn't getting it done for them. You know what I mean? With his actions. By the time we taped this video, we haven't seen or read Jeff Capel's post-game comments, but by sitting John Hughley, effectively benching him in the second half, he said Hughley's not getting it done. And we're scoring in some really effective ways right now. And so we're going to go with the guys who are making it happen. And the guys who were making it happen were Nelly Cummings, Blake Hinson, Jamarius Burton, Greg Elliott last night played his best game as a Pitt Panther. And overall, it was just an outstanding performance. And look, I don't know how good Northwestern's going to be. I don't think they're going to be very good, to be quite honest. But I think they have been, this season, they've been a pretty good defensive team. And the numbers bear that out. When you look at not giving up more than 63 points in a game this year, I think Pitt's first half, where they scored 37, was the most anybody has scored against Northwestern in the first half this year. I mean, they've been a good defensive team, and Pitt just ran circles around them. Just put on a clinic. And with any stat, however you want to slice this, you know what I mean? And I keep coming back to the assists of 22 on 26 made field goals. But I mean, you can pretty much run down the box score and just about everything you're going to see outside of John Hughley's stat line, quite frankly, Jorge Diaz-Graham didn't have a great game. He was 0 of 3 from the floor. And so that wasn't, that didn't do a whole lot. But pretty much every stat you're going to see from this game is outstanding. And, you go back and forth about how much you're going to take out of this. But if ever there was the type of performance that you could take a lot from, it's something like this. You didn't just sneak out 65-58 or 64-58 or something like that, where you didn't really play great or you had bad stretches. And this is a game where you just beat up on a high major opponent on the road. And for whatever you want to say about Northwestern, they are a Big Ten team. You were playing on the road, and you weren't expected to win this game. I didn't expect them to win, largely because I hadn't seen them play a 40-minute game yet. Well, now I have. And now I'm starting to think there's a real possibility here, a real chance for this team to win a few more games and kind of keep its success up. And they're going to have a big week here. They have a week of high major opponents and, of varying degrees of, levels of competition. But it's a week of high major opponents, and that's going to provide some challenges. But I think when you look at the way this team was passing the ball last night, and you look at the way they were shooting, which was a direct sort of offshoot of the passing. They passed so well that they were able to get those open shots, and then they have the shooters who are capable of knocking it down. Cummings, Hinson, Elliott, Burton, those guys can make those shots, particularly in Sabandi, particularly when they're open like that, which they were because of the passing. And then you throw in that big element there of John Hughley and saying he hasn't really even done anything yet. He hasn't played his best basketball. Last night was the best game for this team so far. That was the best basketball we've seen them play, but it was not the best basketball we've ever seen from John Hughley, who has yet to play his best basketball this season, which, quite frankly, should only make things better. You know what I mean? As if they keep humming along like this and passing like this and understanding how to drive and kick like this and understanding how to make the extra pass like they did last night to get, to turn a good shot into a great shot or a great shot into a better shot. If they keep that up and then, really force opponents to adjust their defensive tactics against Pitt, to focus more on shutting them down in the shooting, shutting them down at the perimeter, then John Hughley's just going to have, it's going to be an all-you-can-eat buffet for him as once he gets back up to speed, which I have to think he's still kind of working his way. Eventually, it's not going to take forever. He'll get there. And when he does, I think there's a chance this team could be pretty tough to stop. Now, I still have some questions about their defense. I think those questions are going to linger for quite a little bit longer. If they're going to need to get to, the end of the calendar year and play good defense for consecutive games before I'm really going to buy into it. But they certainly look like they can score. They certainly look like they can be a good offensive team, and they look like the kind of team that even if their defense is not keeping it up, they're probably going to be able to keep putting in the points. And so, you're not going to choose one over the other, offense or defense, but it's pretty unique to see a team that can score like this one can. They can shoot like this one can, and now with the way they played last night, I should say. Obviously, we're taping this on Monday night, so I keep getting mixed up. But I'm trying to talk like it's Tuesday morning. If they pass like they did last night, they're going to be tough, really tough. Final assist numbers: Jamarius Burton had 7, Nelly Cummings had 6, Blake Hinson had 5. And Nike Sabandi had 4. And that added up to your 22 assists. Really just came from those 4 guys who were getting the ball in their hands and passing it to teammates to try and, like I say, turn great shots or good shots into great shots and great shots into better shots. And it was a fun game to watch. They definitely were playing at a high level. So kudos to Pitt, 5-3 now on the season. They've got a 4-game winning streak going. Their first 4-game winning streak in 2 years. You go back to the 2020-2021 season when they lost to St. Francis PA to open the year. They followed that loss with a 5-game winning streak, which incidentally also included a win at Northwestern. Weird coincidence, right? But they're on a little streak now. We'll see how far. We'll see how far they can push it. See if they can keep it going. But I mean, I definitely got to think that plane ride home from Chicago or Evanston or wherever they want to say it is going to be a fun one. Pitt, they'll be off until Friday night when they play at NC State, that random early season ACC game that they're going to have there. They'll play at NC State on Friday night, and then they'll close this road trip of high major opponents next Wednesday night at 9 o'clock at Vanderbilt. Then they come back to the Peterson Events Center for Sacred Heart in North Florida. And then on December 20th, they jump into ACC play full-time with a trip to Syracuse, a Tuesday night, 9 o'clock tip-off. So it's, it's coming. And I think they're going to have this next little stretch here is going to be an interesting test. This was the first game. Last night's game was the first game of this interesting, series of tests with Northwestern. Then they go to, you have NC State at the end of the week and Vanderbilt midweek next week to really kind of, I think, get a sense of where you are. And you can't, win those 3 or 2 out of 3 and then lose to Sacred Heart or North Florida or something like that. But you are going to have a real sense of where this team is. And I think we said this coming into the week, that this is where we're going to find out a lot about who this team really is. We're going to get a real indication before they dive headlong into, conference play. So Pitt's 5-3, and they get a couple days here to fine-tune some things before they go to NC State, take on the Wolfpack. A few football notes today that we need to discuss. Really kind of came out of the news yesterday. 2 transfers. 2 players announced that they're going into the transfer portal. 2 players with remaining eligibility. It's junior wide receiver Jalen Barden, and redshirt senior safety Judson Townder. And neither guy really a surprise. I think probably saw it coming with both of these guys. I think Judson Townder might have participated on senior day. Let me find my notes on whether or not he did. I thought he might have. Either way, as a redshirt senior, he's got 1 year left to play due to COVID, due to the COVID year. And I think given where he was on the depth chart, I think there were some rumors or indications that he might choose to go. He did walk on senior day as a redshirt senior, and so that was some indication. But ultimately, he was a guy who was behind Brandon Hill at the boundary safety position. He wasn't playing. I mean, even when you look at the Delta defensive package on third down where they use an extra safety, it was Javon McIntyre, the redshirt freshman, playing there, not Judson Townder. Townder would play in place of McIntyre at times. So after Rashad Battle got hurt and they needed someone to step into that role, they went with McIntyre as opposed to Townder. And so he might have gotten a sense that he was behind McIntyre on the depth chart. McIntyre, of course, had a big game on Saturday night with an interception and a sack. And so he's going to go somewhere else, just kind of glancing down the numbers for Judson Townder. Played about 60-some snaps on defense this year. Didn't play any snaps on defense at Miami. Played 11 against Duke, 18 at Virginia, a game where they were kind of blowing them out. Played a decent amount in the Tennessee game, but really not much more than a handful of snaps in any game since then, defensively. Mostly just playing in, relief of Brandon Hill. Jalen Barden's the other one that it's just not a surprise, and it's unfortunate. As a junior wide receiver, it's unfortunate, but just not a surprise. I mean, he only played in 7 games this season. He hasn't played since the Virginia game. He played 1 game in the final 5, and that was 6 snaps at Virginia. Played like 11 snaps at Western Michigan, but then only played 3 against Rhode Island. Played 4 snaps against Georgia Tech, 11 at Louisville, and like I say, 6 at Virginia, and that was it. Just couldn't buy his way onto the field. And the Louisville game, they threw him out there to take the place of Bub Means, who Bub Means got hurt or something in pregame. And so they put Jalen Barden out there playing a position he hadn't really practiced and didn't really know. He spent the whole time trying to get lined up right. And I said, at least give this guy a chance in his natural position. Don't put him in that kind of situation. It's not fair to him. You're not giving him a real chance to succeed. You're putting him in a difficult spot. Give him some playing time in his regular position, and he just didn't get it. And when he was on the field, he did not get passes thrown to him. 3 targets this season. 3 targets all season. He had 11 targets last year and 10 targets as a freshman in 2020. He had 3 targets this season. 2 targets in the Tennessee game. He caught both of them for 14 yards, and he had 1 target at Louisville. He caught that for 5 yards. So he ends up with 3 catches for 19 yards this season. Last year, he caught 9 passes for 174 yards and 2 touchdowns. Averaged almost 20 yards per catch. So you explain to me, and granted, this is a different kind of offense, but you explain to me how a guy last year who had 9 catches averaged almost 20 yards per catch on those 9 catches and included 2 touchdowns, how that guy couldn't get on the field this year. Over the last 2 seasons, his freshman and sophomore seasons, 2020 and 2021, he caught 16 passes for 314 yards, which is like 20 yards a catch. Just shy of 20 yards a catch, 19.7 or something like that, and 3 touchdowns. So 16 catches, 300 plus yards, 3 touchdowns. And you can't find a way to get this guy on the field for more than a handful of snaps. You can't find a way to get more than 3 targets for him. And I mean, I realize there were a lot of complications with this offense this season. A lot of things didn't go right. A lot of things were tricky and confused and messed up and complex and all this. But I mean, here's a guy with proven playmaking ability. And even if, you want to tell me he can't master all the routes, you want to tell me he can't do this or he can't do that. I mean, maybe there are things he can't do or is unable to grasp or something like that. But you know what? There are some things he can do. And it seems to me that's wasted talent. And I have a feeling Jalen Barton's going to go somewhere. I don't know where he'll end up. He's from Georgia. Maybe he goes to one of the schools in Georgia, like a Georgia State or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets another FBS opportunity or even a Power 5 opportunity. And it would not shock me at all if he goes somewhere and really succeeds. I don't know, is he going to have like a year like Shockey Jacques Louis had at Akron this year after transferring from Pitt? I don't know. But I think he could be a really successful college football player. He's got 2 years of eligibility left. Plus, he could take a red shirt. So if he plays a couple games next year and gets hurt or something, he can still have 2 full seasons after that. It's a shame because that really is a situation where I feel like the talent was not maximized, was not used when it could have been. It probably could have helped you win some games, but. So it happens every now and then, and those 2 guys, Barton and Tallender, aren't going to be the last ones. Probably not even the last ones this week. I wouldn't be surprised if Tuesday brings more announcements. And I think there's a decent chance of getting some announcements from a few guys that they're coming back. Seniors who walked on senior day, guys who said they haven't made up their mind yet, like a Servassier Dennis or a Keaton Slovis. If they do decide to come back, I wouldn't be surprised if we see that in the next few days. So, that's what off season has become in 2022. That's what I think it's going to be. Particularly the first week or 2 after the season ends, after the regular season ends, it's going to be a giant period of transfer portal entries. And you're going to have some that go from your school, and you're going to have some guys that go into the portal from other schools that you're going to be keeping your eye on. And I think Pitt's already working that and keeping an eye on guys and trying to find out who's out there and who might be able to help. But Pitt lost 2 on Monday. They won't be the last 2. And it's just a matter of waiting to see who else goes. But if you want to keep up with all the conversation and discussion about it right here, Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. That's the place to go for all of these Pitt sports news and information and rumors and what have you. And of course, the place to go talk about it on the Panther-Lair.com message boards, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. And make sure you like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We put out new content there every day. post-game press conferences, our live show on Wednesday nights. We do it every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And of course, this video. We put out these videos every day, Monday through Friday, in the Morning Pitt videos. Just something to get your day started. Talk about whatever's going on in Pitt sports. Today, we had basketball to talk about and transfer portal entries to talk about. There's always something to talk about, and we will keep it going here Monday through Friday. Every morning we'll have a new Morning Pitt video for you. So thanks for tuning in today. Hope you had a good start to the week yesterday, and hope you have a good rest of Tuesday today. And we will talk to you again tomorrow on Wednesday for the Morning Pitt right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.